Members are present. We've recited the Pledge of Allegiance, and we are now on to comments from the Selectmen.
Hey, Carl. Scott, good morning. Two things, both questions. Regarding the HR consultant, I was reading some in the Harbor News, and I was just hoping we could get an update as to where we are in terms of HR services during the current fiscal year versus during next fiscal year.
So they finished their interviews on Friday. Chris, you met them on Friday, I think.
Yes.
They did a round of interviews with all our department heads and a few other people. And they're kind of just going to do an audit and see what we have, what's missing, what are some of the, what they're hearing. And they're going to report back to us. When they gave us their proposal, they said, if you want full on HR services, full on soup to nuts, we don't do anything. It was basically 70 grand or so. So, as you know, we put 10 grand in the budget. So this is what I'm proposing to Leanne, is that we put 10 grand in this year's budget. We supplement it with 20 grand from the surplus. So we have 30 grand in HR services for fiscal 26. We'll budget 30 grand, or anyway, at least 30 grand if I'm the one doing it, or if this board is the one doing it. We'll budget 30 grand for 27. I don't know that we're gonna need a lot more than that, but we'll have a better idea as we move through fiscal 26 as to what our actual needs will be with regard to this company. I mean, there are some HR questions that go into the legal arena, and for that, sometimes we call Pat McHale, because it might be a collective bargaining issue also. So the idea is to have about 30 grand for HR, but the idea longer term is, probably to have 30 or 50,000 budgeted for it, so that whoever is first selectman or the board of selectmen or department heads, they're going to have a very consistent service they can call on. So that is definitely the short-term and long-term plan, Matt, is to offload these services to a competent HR consultant.
That's great. And just in terms of clarity for scope, is that just for town hall, or is that also for police department and for Board of Education?
So it'll be for general government, which will be for police, not Board of Education. So it'll be for general government, which includes the police department. Now, I can certainly, when we get started next year, I can talk to the superintendent and Pam Listorti over there and say, what do you guys, if we're having a good experience, I can share that with them and see how they'd like to proceed.
Yeah, that sounds like it makes sense. Thank you. And then the other thing is just a flag, circling back, think back maybe before Thanksgiving, and I know we've had a lot on our agenda since, but we had talked about the need for a charter revision. It was time for that. So just wanted to add it to the very long to-do list for us as a board to circle back to. There's a couple other good items on today's agenda. So
I'm sorry, say it again, Matt. There's a couple
of other meaty items on today's agenda, so we don't have to get into it, this week, obviously.
Yeah. Yep. We need to do that. You're correct. So Matt, if you want to reach out to your town chair and have her put some names forward,
sure.
I'll get the process started.
Sounds good. I'll take care of that.
All right. Scotty?
I don't have any comments tonight.
Okay. So I'll make just a few. I was at a CCM meeting last week, and CCM as taking a position on behalf of cities and towns that they're extremely disappointed with the governor's budget. They think it, flat funding is underfunding. Even with this $40 million in special ed, it's 8,000 to the town of Old Saybrook. The city of New London, Mike Passero is basically saying that, the services he's gonna have to offer in 26 are shell services compared to what they should be offering. The car tax really was a loss to most municipalities, even at 90%, it's a loss. So towns are battling with that. This veterans exemption that they supposedly fixed, they did not fix it. In fact, they added to it. They added not only the house used to be exempt, now it's 2 acres of land. There is no income limit. There is no cap on the amount of the tax. So if you have a $5 million home and you qualify, then you don't have to pay taxes. There should be probably a cap on the amount that's exempted. They've also expanded it to Gold Star families. Now, look, these are all worthy causes, but you keep exempting, you keep driving up the property tax. All these exemptions, they drive up the property tax. Firefighter exemptions, should they exist? They absolutely should exist. It went from 1,000 to 2,000. We went from 1,000 to 2,000. That's a state law that allows for that. God forbid that the state should ever make this an income tax deduction. Instead, they put it on the property tax. And, there's a couple bills that are being proposed. One of them is that all park and rec camps have to have an APRN present. We heard from cities and towns at the CCM meeting last week. They'll say, we'll close down our park and rec camps. And those are the camps that people go to because they're affordable. It's just craziness. And then there's one more law that they brought forward in the short session, one more bill they brought forward in the short session last year, saying that if you have a defined benefit pension plan, which we do, it's grandfathered for some of our employees and it still is current for the public safety. If it does not equal what the state municipal employee retirement system plan is, then you have to join the CMERS plan. Now, I don't know if that's going to pass or not, but it's getting some traction. And it's like, well, our plan is collectively bargained. We just sweetened it a little bit. It may still not be a CMERS plan. So, there are a lot of good intentions. Unfortunately, a lot of it ends up straight on the property tax, which is a regressive tax by any count. And this is not a political statement. This is a statement. We are third, fourth, fifth, sixth, we're in the top 10 in the country in terms of property taxes. Whether it's Old Saybrook, whether it's Hamden, Connecticut, New London, Middletown, anywhere. So those are just some things to keep your eye on as we move forward through the budget process. The land trust, we sent them their money, that $10,000 so that they could acquire the land from the racket club. I think, let's see, we still have a couple reval cases from 2023 that we're trying to settle. Chalkers Mill Pond Dam, that project is probably going to go out to bid within a month, which is great news to finally get that project. That's been 5-6 years in the waiting to get that done. And the sidewalks to Westbrook project is probably going out to bid within the next month. The crosswalks on Main Street are probably going out to bid within the next month. So Bill Claffey is getting the paving ready for Main Street. He's going to do some line striping. We're going to continue fixing sidewalks. So we have a full plate ready to go for the spring in terms of construction. one other thing, I'll just make a quick comment, celebrate Saybrook. I think we're up to 120 vendors, including Main Street vendors. We're pretty much full. We put a down payment on the cups. We put a down payment on the band. And so everything's really coming together. In fact, I think we have a meeting either today or tomorrow on that. So we're getting ready to have a good summer party. I'll leave it at that. If anybody wants to respond, Matt, do you have any comments based on any of that?
Nope. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're good?
Good.
Okay, all right, this stuff is gonna be quick, and then we'll just go to Chris Costa. Tax refunds, 12/1/24 to 1/31/25 for approval. I'll make a motion. Is there a second?
Second,
Was that in your packet?
yes,
Yeah,
and
okay,
it was surprisingly, I think, a great low number.
yeah. Well, it just happens. It happens
Yeah.
throughout the tax year. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We're gonna do, okay, discussion and possible action on refund of a building permit. These usually involve solar that don't go forward, 61 Church Street. We keep an administrative fee, but everything else gets refunded. I'll make a motion. Is there a second?
Second,
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
And then
Aye.
two encroachment permits, 32C Lane, 9 Overlook. We'll do these together. I'll make a motion that we refund both those encroachment permits, is there a second?
Second,
Which basically means that the work has been done, Bill Claffey has inspected it, and the encroachment permit bond gets released, which is usually a check for $1,500. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
All right,
Aye.
all right, good. So we've gotten through that. Let's, with the consent of the board, Chris Costa's in the room. Why don't we skip to item number 6F, which is discussion and possible action on adopting a resolution regarding joining the Connecticut Municipal Redevelopment Authority as a member municipality. I'll make that motion. Is there a second for discussion?
Second.
All right, so Chris, I'm gonna have you just kind of, let me step up so we can hear you through the owl.
Yeah. So, good morning. Several months ago, we started taking a look at MRDA, the Municipal Redevelopment Authority, which is a new program through the state. I met with David Kors, who leads that program, and then we had a meeting with our boards and commissions to discuss what MRDA is. So it is a program that if towns approve a resolution to opt in, it promotes economic development, transit-oriented development, and the purpose is to increase housing stock, not just affordable, all types of housing within a half a mile of the train station. So this board today is looking at a resolution to opt in. There is a certification process, so you don't just simply opt in. This board would opt in through the town. We take a look at our zoning regulations and what's in place to set some boundaries, working with the MRDA team. And then what would happen is if we are approved, there'd be some boundaries set, and property owners at some point could apply for bonding as well as the town. This could be for infrastructure, it can be to improve other housing opportunities. So the first step would be to approve the resolution that is in your packets today, and then we would start looking at the zoning and see if we could become eligible for this funding and support.
So a half mile, I guess, does get us partly into Mariner's Way. But I guess, if any of those properties on Stage Road ever were to, I know there's some new businesses there, but if those were ever to sell, I know there's 60 million in bonding right now, and there's probably, going to be a fair bit of demand for that. But hopefully this will be continually funded. in future fiscal years, if we're not able to act on it this year. So, Chris, what are some of the next steps after today?
So I did reach out to David Corus, who
Yep.
was the head for the program. I told him that this board was considering adopting the resolution today. Once we opt in, we need to pretty much qualify through a certification process. And that would be looking at our existing zoning, what we have. I think we may have a few things that we could at least kind of establish a small zone to get started. However, that's the decision of MRDA to do that. And then we would evaluate our zoning regulations, see if there's things we can do to improve them, even if we don't have the qualifying factor to set the boundaries within the half mile and have the zoning in place to increase housing.
I know half mile gets us about halfway into Mariner's Way or something in Mariner's, which a lot of that is wet,
Yes.
unfortunately, but whatever. I mean, you never know where an opportunity might arise. You never know. I mean,
And I believe they were shooting for 150 to 250 million dollars by the end of fiscal year 2027. That's what I had from my
All right.
notes.
all right.
Whether that will happen or not, that's one thing, but that was one of the numbers I had written down because it was 60 million initially.
So 60 million was a marker.
And this is a new program, so.
Matt, do you have anything?
I mean, I'm very excited that the town is considering and hopefully taking the step to take advantage of this as a tool to look at development. In full disclosure, I currently serve as the commissioner's designee on the MRDA board. And I think that, the amount of effort that it takes to set up a quasi entity like this, I don't think that the intent is that this goes away once the current funds are spent down.
Yeah.
I'm speaking that, but it is a lot of effort and work to set this up and get things moving. And I know that David has also thought about that half mile and whether or not it's the right marker, and hopefully it can be increased to maybe 3/4 of a mile in the future, and that might help as we look at opportunities along Mariner's Way and along other main arteries within half mile, 3/4 of a mile of the train station. So I think having any tools in our toolkit as a town to bring additional resources to support housing are a smart action for us to take.
Also, this also would get us somewhat down Main Street too, a little bit.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that is also a possibility. If we can get some, all right. Right, there's a couple, I have to probably amend the resolution, but we can pass it. And then it says January of 25 on it, so I'll correct that at the top of the resolution. But the content of the resolution will stay the same. And so it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right, we've opted in. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Want to stay for 1 second? Do you have a meeting? or
No, I
anything?
can stay.
All right.
That got rearranged, so perfect this morning.
So why don't we take up next, the appointment of a Mariner's Way redevelopment ad hoc committee. For now, we opted against a redevelopment agency just because there is no public land out there. And I'd rather, and I think it was the consensus of the group to form a committee and have the committee investigate what could be the next steps and what might be helpful. We did do a survey, which is great. We did a survey of the entirety of Mariner's Way. So we have that to work with. So this group should be able to look at possible infrastructure improvements that we might be able to make along Mariner's Way. And we would like to engage the business owners there too. In fact, one of the folks that we're proposing for this committee is an owner of a business out there and is very interested in connecting Mariners Way more towards downtown and more towards the train station, more towards some other amenities. So, what I'm going to do here is make a motion that we appoint a committee, a Mariners Way Redevelopment Committee, and the members of that committee are Chris Rickson, Casey Hand. What's Tracy's name?
Casey.
No, Casey Hand.
Yeah.
What's Tracy's last name? Do you know? Tracy owns a business out there, the crafting business.
Paper craft
Yeah.
clubhouse.
So the owner of the crafting business out there, Tina Rupp, the realtor, was very interested in this. Doug McCracken, who sits on our planning commission and our hazard mitigation committee, and Doug has just been a real, we've been very lucky to have Doug involved in a lot of our committees, has also volunteered. And Bruce Carlson has also volunteered for this. So I'll make a motion that those folks be appointed to this committee as a starting point, and I'll email them all so that we can figure out when they're going to meet. Jennifer Donahue graciously has agreed to assist this committee as they move forward. She feels like she has some time, and she's been very involved in this already. And we've given Jennifer some other administrative help in the last year, so she feels like she feels it's important enough and that she has the capacity to assist. So I'm going to make that motion, and then we can discuss further.
I second that.
I'll second.
And is the charge in the package? I may not have put the charge in here. We did, here, hold on one second, and I will be able to get you don't have the charge handy, do you?
No, but I can look it up.
Me too.
That's why I was looking Tracy's name.
We'll see who can find it faster here. All right. The charge. The town of Old Saybrook recently completed a study of Mariners Way's economic and market opportunities by Camoin Associates. The Camoin study made a series of recommendations on how to revitalize this gateway into Old Saybrook, as well as different types of businesses and other activities that could be attracted to Mariners Way. The Mariners Way Redevelopment Committee's charge is to take the recent Camoin study and other information that has been developed for Mariners Way, and through working with the property and business owners at Mariners Way and the town, identify economically viable projects that the interested parties can pursue. In its efforts, the Mariners Way Redevelopment Committee should identify an overall redevelopment vision for Mariners Way, specific studies that may be needed to advance that redevelopment vision, zoning or other regulatory changes that would need to be made to advance the redevelopment vision, funding sources to help support and incentivize redevelopment, specific projects that the town would support at Mariners Way and potential development partners, whether the Mariners Way Redevelopment Committee should evolve into a redevelopment authority in order to best accomplish this charge. The Board of Selectmen will meet regularly with the Mariners Way Redevelopment Committee and will determine the appropriate administrative structure to pursue the redevelopment goals by the end of 2025. So that's the charge. I thank, again, Bruce for giving that charge a stab. So, any questions on that? Or
Carl,
comments?
oh, sorry, can you hear me?
Yep.
So I think just one question, like, as they come up with their recommendations, whether it be zoning or budgetary grant applications, they bring those to the relevant boards and commissions, or do they bring those to the Board of Selectmen for the Board of
Oh,
Selectmen to bring forward to?
I think primarily to the Board of Selectmen, and then we'll offload it to where it should
Okay.
go. And yeah, I mean, I think this could be a multi-commission meeting, eventually.
Mhm.
And maybe even along the way. I mean, maybe that committee may want to immediately meet with zoning, or may want to meet with zoning in the near future. I don't know.
Mhm.
But there's no restriction. Obviously, really, at this point, it's an ad hoc committee of the Board of Selectmen, so we're the reporting authority, but it's a pretty good group of folks, and I think they should certainly not be restricted to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay, thank you. And then my only other question, you said this is the committee to start. Is there a sense in discussion of what the maximum is? I mean, I would think it looks like we have 6 members on it. I would think we would want at least one more just in the event that they needed to break a tie as they were deciding to
Yeah.
move forward. But
Yeah, so we do have one other person in mind. That person was on a ski vacation this past week
okay,
and said, you know, maybe this is something we can talk about in person. You know, I don't want to say the name just in case they don't want to do
Yep.
it, and I don't want to, you know, but really good person, I think, for the committee, but very busy. And
Yep.
that, you know, like Casey Hand is very busy too. She's got little babies, so,
Yep.
but she's agreed to serve, and that's great, so.
Great.
Yeah, you know, look, I mean, you would hope that a committee like this is really working together, and I don't think 6 is like a bad thing at this point. I think we're
Mhm.
really looking for a constructive group to really work together, so.
No, I'm excited that we're taking this active step forward, and you know, and this is actually one of the things that was recommended in the Moines study. So we're taking that study, we're taking action on it, and glad we're moving forward. Thank you.
Hope we are. We'll see. It's a tough stretch there. It really is. So,
Yep.
and there's so much going on there right now. All those properties that were for sale are sold, and it's all because of the Amtrak project.
Yeah, for a period of time. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, at least a lot of that is being improved.
Mhm.
And I think that's gonna lead to maybe that one final piece being improved, which would be, you know, some of this is happening organically, right? The fact is, money is being put into that area, and it happens to be federal money, which is, I mean, who's gonna argue with that at this point? And dirt is flying for the first time out there in a very long time. So it's like, you know, any publicity is good publicity, which I don't necessarily agree with, but you know, sometimes any out that way, any construction is good construction at this point, because nothing has happened for so long. So, all right, it's been moved and seconded. I've named the members, the members to start. Obviously, this committee could come and go as people become available. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right, thank you. Chris, you are dismissed.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right. All right, I want to do, before we break up, item number G, which is discussion and possible action on HB 7067 municipal option motor vehicle depreciation schedule. So the depreciation schedule, as was put into law last year, which was in response to the crazy values of used cars as a result of the pandemic, basically says if you buy a new car, it'll be taxed at 85% of the MSRP. You take that value, you apply it to the mill rate, and there's your tax on the car, and it goes down 5% every year, I think for 15 years, and it stabilizes at 15 or 20% of the MSRP. So that's great. It's a depreciation schedule, probably way more logical than looking up book values on vehicles every year. But for the town of Old Saybrook, and this was, let me tell you something, this is a big deal all over the state of Connecticut. It is a significant loss of revenue off the grand list. Now, that being said, in Old Saybrook, it's like $320,000 that is coming off the grand list, or it's like 20 million coming off the grand list. It's about 320,000 in revenue that we are not able to factor in as revenue to affect the mill rate this year, which would be $320,000 less, which would be, let's say, that instead of going up 0.42, we might only be going up 0.32 or 0.30. The flip side of that is people are keeping that money, right? I mean, so it's money that's not being taxed to our citizens. So, you know, there's a couple ways to look at that. One other way to look at it is there are more people have cars. So if that $320,000 goes straight onto houses, goes straight onto real property, and from personal property, which is vehicles. So there are less houses than there are cars. You know, if you rent, it goes to, you know, obviously in theory, that $300,000 would increase the taxes of the building in which you rent. But so there's a couple different ways to look at it. I'm on the fence. I will tell you that I tried to take a survey of towns in our COG. Clinton is going up 5%. So Clinton is going to go from 85 to 90%. Westbrook is not. Essex is not. And if we were to implement the 85 to 90%, it would go from, our mill rate would go from 0.42 as the budget stands right now to 0.39 increase overall. It would lessen the impact of what the Board of Education did to their budget at the last minute, which was about a $300,000 increase, about a $300,000 increase. So it would basically offset that. You know, if we were to go to the 90%, we would go to 85% next year. We would go to 80% the year after that. So it still puts us on a depreciation schedule. You just are starting at 5% higher for 1 year. That's it. For this fiscal year. So it lessens the hit to the grand list for 1 fiscal year, and that's it. So are there any thoughts from the board?
Yeah, so I also was kind of torn on this one, you know, and really spending some time thinking it through. I mean, as you have stated, Carl, the property tax is a regressive tax, and the car tax is a regressive tax as well. Yeah. And you know, you've already raised the piece that I've been thinking of. There are more cars in town than there are houses, and you know, people that rent, elderly people that you know, may not own property anymore. You know, the car tax has an impact on all of them. So I feel at the moment that because within our budget we're comfortable. We are comfortable with the budget as is. I feel that we're already providing this tax relief to people through the car tax, and I think I'm more comfortable staying as is at the 85%.
Yeah, you know, that was my original inclination on this. So I guess what I would, if a point, right now, we're at 0.42, and I have no idea what the Board of Finance may or may not do to the budget. I'm guessing that I don't think there will be a significant add to the budget. I would hope. I don't know, there's competing theories on whether they're allowed to add to the budget, and whether their charge is basically to either take the budget or to reduce the budget. So if our budget was going up in the 0.6 of a mil, 0.7 of a mil, I might be more inclined to say, hey, look, we need to soften the blow a little bit on the mill rate, spread it out a little bit more. But as the budget stands, it's a reason, I don't think it's an unreasonable mill rate bump at 0.42. The general government budget is up 1.7%. It's hard to argue with that. Obviously, Board of Ed budget is up a little bit more, over 4. So, Matt, I tend to agree with you. It's like, it's a one-time bump and that's it. So, we kind of have to go in this direction one way or another. It's going to go down next year. So, yeah, I'm on the fence about it. I don't care one way or another whether it goes up or down.
All right, well, I'm indifferent as well, and if we can.
All right.
Not do it 2 years in a row, maybe it's better to just do it in the first year.
Yeah, so let's just stick with it, since none of us are feeling very strongly about going from 85 to 90%, but I did want to bring it to the board. It needed action if we were going to do it. If we're not going to do it, the grand list is good as it is.
And I appreciate the perspective that you share.
Well, all right, so.
And so we don't need to take any action then, because we're gonna leave it as is. Okay.
We've discussed it,
Yep.
discussed, and we will not take action. All
Okay,
right.
great, thank you.
So let's bang through a couple of these appointments, and we can, I know Scott has a time deadline here. So the Cable TV Advisory Board, the most hilarious thing about this is there was no one on this board for 13 years. Now our local cable TV access group, Valley Shore Community Television, has been very active at the state legislature because they're worried about losing some funding. So they are really trying to reconstitute their board, and I've had people, come out and say, I'd really be interested in doing this. So we've already appointed one person, and the other person is this gentleman named Bernard Galley, who's got some work, Joanne Galley, who's a clerk for, I think, zoning and a few other boards. Her husband's had a career in the industry, and he was super interested in doing this, and I'm thrilled that we have a full cable TV advisory board of all things. We really never had it before, so I'll move Bernard Galley Jr. to the Cable TV Advisory Board.
Second.
Any comments? Hearing none,
Thank
all
you.
those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 So the second one is inland wetlands, what's his name, Scott, who resigned. You campaigned with him, he's Spanish.
Alex Bertrand.
Alex Bertrand resigned, and Andy Gaburi is I think her name is Anna or Alexandra, she goes by Andy, is Mario Gaburi's daughter, and she's got a super interesting background, very involved. She's already been to a couple inland wetland meetings and has spoken up. I was talking to Lynette Wacker about it, who seemed very excited to have her on. She's very outspoken, and very young. She's 24, I believe she's 24, and sent a letter of interest when it became available. And I think it's important that we encourage some of our younger folks to get interested in this. Her family, of course, comes from a long line of those who've been very publicly invested in the community. I'm guessing her father had something to do with this. And I just thought it was great that she was willing to step up. So I did get a couple other folks. There was at least one other person who is interested in either inland wetlands or conservation. There is going to be an opening on conservation. And so I emailed that person back, and I'm hopeful that this person who had emailed me, I won't say the name because, you know, they were interested in either inland wetlands or conservation. So I was going to appoint this other person to conservation once I got the resignation letter from one of our members there. So I'm going to move Andy Gabori to this position.
I will second that.
Matt, do you have any comments?
Nice resume.
Matt, you good?
Sorry, trying to get off mute. Yes, no comments.
Oh, no, okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, Public Health Nursing Board, finally, Mary Ann Iadarola came off. This lovely lady, Roseanne Farrell, came into my office
Resume.
and was recommended by Diane Aldi, who's the chair of the Public Health Nursing Board, and Mary Ann, I think they both met her. And she was just a really delight to talk to. You know, worked in New York City for many years, has a house on Church Street, and so she's interested. So I'm going to move that we appoint Roseanne Farrell to the PHNB.
Second that.
All right, Matt, any? Okay, all right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
And looks like we were able to get through this agenda, and even though there were some big items on there, got through them. We'll see how the rest of the session goes. Hopefully, the legislature will do no harm, and we'll move on. So, all right, with that, we will move to adjourn so you guys can get to your meetings. So, I'll move it. Scott will second it. All those in favor, aye. Matt, have a good
Aye.
day.
Thanks, guys.